David Ellison is now at the helm of CBS News, and he's hired Bari Weiss. She describes herself as a diehard Zionist. She's going hard and firing a lot of people. In fact, Bari Weiss apparently fired a journalist who exposed atrocities in Gaza.
By the way, I just want to interject. There's no proof that Bari made that call to fire her.
She's the head of news at CBS.
She didn't make the call
The
to
buck
fire
stops
her.
with her.
Who's in charge right now?
Right now it's Bari Weiss, but a lot of the decision-makings that are taking place now.
The Pentagon pledge. What is Secretary Pete Hegseth asking the press corps to do?
I was kind of shocked to find out that the journalists were allowed to walk and freely roam around the Pentagon. There was a couple of reporters who were secretly recording video and audio, so I understand from that angle.
The point here is that there's been a lack of transparency from the Pentagon, and the whole reason why we have press is to hold people in positions of power accountable for their actions.
But my whole thing is loose lips sink ships. And
Right.
if something gets leaked, it will cost America's safety. Why do you think that
So for
these
him,
news
for
networks are
Fox
entitled to
News,
that
excuse me,
information?
for Fox
Because
News
it's the
to
media,
say-
and we live in a country where the First Amendment protects freedom of the
And
press.
nobody's
The
gonna
only
leak
reason
it?
why it exists in America
No, because they
is
have
to hold our
already-
government
they
accountable
are-
when they're behaving in a bad
Anna
way.
is
we
exactly
pay
right.
federal
I don't think we
taxes.
can trust journalists to not leak.
The American people deserve to know what's going on in the halls of power. And how do we hold their feet to the fire? It's through the press. Without a free and working press, the American experiment would crumble. Hi everyone, it's so good to be back with you. We have a fiery as hell show for you today. We have two great guests. Breanna Morello is our first one. So good to be thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
She is a former Fox Corp Newsmax and local news producer and a former reporter for Major League Baseball. She's a current host of the American Journal on InfoWars.
Yes, thank you.
And Emily Austin is back with us. She's an American TV personality, sports broadcaster, entrepreneur, and host of The Emily Austin Show, a former Miss Universe judge, and current DAZN boxing broadcaster. She regularly appears on major news networks to discuss Middle East politics. She is also the founder of a Korean-inspired skincare brand.
Hey.
Thank you for coming in today.
Of course.
All right, we have a jam-packed show, and I can't wait to get into it with you. The first topic that we're going to go into is the Pentagon pledge. We're going to talk and tell you exactly what that is, what Secretary Hegseth is demanding from the press corps, and we're going to talk about how Bari Weiss is now running CBS News, the people behind that, David and Larry Ellison, what are they up to, what are their plans going forward, and Anna is going to talk about job losses, including or especially at Amazon, and what is driving that and the role that AI is playing across the economy. So I am super excited for this, and you're in for a ride. All right, so we're going to start with the Pentagon pledge. Thank you, Connor. So what you're seeing right now is a list of everyone who signed on to the pledge and everyone who hasn't. And as you can see on the right, there's a whopping one organization, One American News. What exactly is this pledge, and what is Secretary Pete Hegseth asking the press corps to do? Okay, so Hegseth is saying that people who want to report on the grounds of the Pentagon can only report what the Pentagon has explicitly approved. And I think you got, Breanna, I cannot wait to get your take on this.
Yeah.
News organizations from both sides of the aisle have said, no, we're not going to do that because we don't want to be reduced to stenographers. We want to do real reporting, which is sometimes reporting on the things that the Pentagon, that the new Department of War, doesn't want us to report on. I'd love to get your take on this, especially since you're in the fray yourself. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I just recently got approved to be one of the members of the media now that they've made these changes. And I know everyone at first was like, this is crazy, this is insane. I read through it because they asked me to sign it, and I had no issue with it. What's happening here is they're not asking you to only go through approved talking points that they've put out there for you. They just don't want people wandering around the Pentagon and kind of unsolicited grabbing information from people who work there. So what do I mean by that? Well, I was kind of shocked to find out that the journalists were allowed to walk and freely roam around the Pentagon and go into certain different places that I had no idea that they were allowed to go into. So what this is doing now is you have to, number one, display your credentials, which I would have no problem with because when I was working over Major League Baseball, we always had to have our credentials on at all times. Number two, You could only go to like authorized areas. If there's an area where you want to go, you have to ask for permission, and that I'm also okay with, because we just learned that this week, or last week I should say, that over at the White House press pool, according to the White House comms team itself, there was a couple of reporters who were secretly recording video and audio along their office space over there without their permission, and so they also had their ear to the doors, what I'm being told, and the wall itself, to listen to the press secretary have conversations, which obviously they weren't privy to in the first place. So I understand from that angle. Now, here's the thing. I know the media outlets all sat there and they were very emotional about the decision, because once they heard that I was approved, I know they started jumping on me for this. But the reality of it is, I'm a First Amendment advocate, absolutist at this point. They can't stop you from publishing anything that is that's not classified. So if it's something that's available that you're allowed to do, they're okay with you doing that. You could actually sue them if they pull your credentials for, let's say you publish a story that they didn't like that you published, and then they yank your credentials back. You could go to court and sue them for that, because they can't do that. It's called free press. So I think a lot of the journalists were upset, but I don't think that they truly understood exactly what it meant. It just means you can't be walking around talking to people who work at the Pentagon, get information from them, and then use it without even them knowing that they're talking to a journalist because you don't have your credentials on, and then use it in a story. So I understand that backing in itself. I understand why they're doing that. And the comms team, these people aren't evil. They're not trying to control the messaging. These people, whenever I have a question for them, they're quick to respond, even if it's something that might not look good on their part. I mean, I've been very critical of the Pentagon. 3 different times I've reported on something that was not positive for Pete Hegseth, and they still asked me to come on board.
Yeah, I just want to say something before I ask you ladies your thoughts. I was one of the very first Democrats to come out and unequivocally say, let's give Pete Hegseth a chance. I support his candidacy. I caught so much flack for that. So let me say, Pete and I also have the same lawyer. I love this guy, I really do. But I have to say, I disagree with him on this, okay? The American people deserve to know what's going on in the halls of power. And I also want to address one argument that you specifically made, and that is going into unauthorized areas, or not showing their press pass, or not going, walking freely. They were never allowed to do that in the first place. Someone already debunked that. This is not a new practice. No one has the right to just go into areas of the Pentagon without authorization.
Right.
This is a long-standing policy that they can only go into specifically authorized corridors.
Lindy, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, look, the one area where the Trump administration is receiving the most criticism from its own base is the area of foreign policy, for obvious reasons. I mean, he was elected specifically because he promoted himself as the anti-war candidate. And as soon as he got elected, you know, it seemed as though he was in the pocket of Israel. He's ramping up for a war with Venezuela. Some are arguing that it's just a psyop, but obviously we've been sending more and more military assets there. And whatever ends up happening with Venezuela, the point here is that there's been a lack of transparency from the Pentagon. And the whole reason why we have press is to hold people in positions of power in our government and in corporations accountable for their actions. I feel that this is a power grab and a way to essentially shut the press out from being able to report on what's happening in the halls of power, particularly in the one area where the Trump administration is getting a lot of pushback from his own base.
Yeah, can I jump on that? So ultimately, the corporate media for a very long time has not been the pushback when it was the Biden administration.
No, it hasn't. It's been very much in favor of the war machine. You're right.
Well, and when Lloyd Austin went missing for, I think it was over a week when he was having the surgery, not many people pushed back on that. And
Nobody
I thought that was an absolute
And they should
disgrace.
have.
And they should have.
Right.
I think that they're going to have access to what I was told is they're going to have access to appear remotely at these press conferences and still get to ask those questions. And they could also apply for guest passes as well. So they could come in one day if they need to and still go to the Pentagon. So they're not totally being blocked out in that sense. They're just being asked to agree to these terms. And again, if they try to shut you out later on, you have a right to sue.
Yeah, right. How
sue.
many people have the resources to actually wage a forceful lawsuit?
Big corporations definitely do have that.
Lindy, I want to question what you said. I understand freedom of press, and don't get me wrong, I'm kind of with you, free speech absolutist, even if I detest the speech. But at what cost when it comes to Pentagon? And I know you said that they can't publish anything classified, obviously. But my whole thing is, loose lips sink ships. And if something gets leaked that will cost America's safety, at what point do you draw
Emily,
the line?
that question was for me, right? So let me address that.
Right.
News organizations, by the way, like the Wall Street Journal, which is a conservative bastion, one of the most well-respected publications on the right, they have said if something undermines national security, if there's an ongoing military operation, we're just not going to publish it. That's
just them.
No. That's everybody. That's NPR, CNN, that's Fox News, that is Newsmax, which I regularly appear on. I'm actually really proud of Fox News and Newsmax for taking a stand, because Pete Hegseth, let's remind folks, he was a Fox and Friends weekend host.
Yeah,
this is his person.
Yeah, but why do you think that these news networks are entitled to that information?
For Fox
Because
News
it's the
to
media,
say,
and we live in a country where the First Amendment protects freedom of the
And
press.
nobody's
The
gonna
only
leak
reason
it?
why it exists in America
because they
is
have
to hold our
already-
government
they are
accountable
so-
when they're behaving in a bad
Anna
way.
is
we
exactly
pay
right.
federal
I don't
taxes.
think we can trust journalists to not leak.
we don't need to take what reporters say on faith. There has been a long history of news organizations deferring to the United States government when there is an ongoing military operation. For example, when there was a military strike just recently, they withheld that information until Trump had the actual opportunity to execute upon it. We don't need to trust them. They have done it. There's a history of this. When something is at stake, when national security is at stake, when there's an imminent strike on a foreign nation, they've withheld that information in the interest of the United States. But when it comes to personnel issues, when it comes to, for example, personal conflicts or even Signalgate, which is what happened with the Atlantic reporter when he was somehow added to a Signal chat group, that deserves to be reported. The American people deserve to know. You know?
So you genuinely have enough faith in journalists? I'm not talking about specific organizations, because I can't blame an organization for a journalist doing the right or wrong thing half the time. I just personally don't understand how you guys can trust that no journalist will leak this. That's all I'm saying.
Let me tell you, I'm American, and I revere our Constitution. I revere freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, freedom and the obligation, the privilege to hold our leaders to account. They should feel
I
uncomfortable.
trust you with
Hold
these
on a second,
secrets and
Emily.
talk about
I
other
gotta
journalists.
finish. I gotta finish. I hope our leaders feel uncomfortable, because they should face the sunlight of accountability, of responsibility to the American people to operate the highest levels of conduct. We deserve that. And how do we hold their feet to the fire? It's through the press. Without a free and working press, the American experiment would crumble.
So hypothetically speaking, I personally don't think it'll happen, but you guys were discussing Venezuela on your last episode. If, let's say, America decided to strike them, which again, I don't think will happen, you would feel comfortable knowing journalists might have obtained that information, and you just have confidence in them not to go and leak it? Like, why shouldn't they sign this NDA?
I already told you, Emily. First of all, you're talking through hypotheticals. I'm not going to engage in something that may not even happen. I'm talking about facts and empirical data. I'm talking about throughout American history, news organizations, the Washington Post, New York Times, they have deferred to the United States government. This is not my imagination. This is literal history. They have deferred to the American government when there's an imminent military strike.
The other thing I'll just add is I'm kind of surprised to hear how much you care about classified information, Emily, considering the fact that you're a huge Trump supporter, which is totally fine. I respect that. Trump mishandled classified documents. There's literally audio of him talking about having information about potential strikes that he was going to share with another foreign government or a leader from a foreign government. I mean, I trust the journalists a lot more than I trust our own politicians. And by the way, Biden mishandled classified documents. There's the mishandling of classified documents all over the place. But when it comes to freedom of the press, I would venture to say that is one of the most important things to protect. And in regard to reporting on classified documents, the one thing I will say is there are two tranches in which classified documents exist. There's actual classified documents that have to do with our national security. And in that regard, I agree with you. Journalists need to be careful in what they report in order to avoid sacrificing our national security. But I also know our federal government classifies all sorts of things that don't need to be classified at all in an effort to prevent reporting on those issues.
So that was my question to Lindy. I'll ask you the same. Where do you draw the line? Because I'm aware that they do that, by the way. I'm not stupid.
Well,
I'm not going to defend
every
their
news
decision they make.
organization has a team of lawyers, and they know that everything they report is going to get attacked by the very people in positions of power who do not want those stories reported. So they're going to have to check with their legal teams to make sure what they're reporting isn't going to get them in trouble. They want to cover their own asses.
My point is, when it comes to military operations, which is kind of, the Pentagon specialty here, I don't feel like they need to be 100% transparent. I feel like that's how you lose militarily. It's dangerous.
But
it's irresponsible.
We already discussed that. And what I'm saying is that's fair. But that's not
my point.
That's not. But what I'm saying is that when you have He is making a blanket statement. He's saying that nothing that the Pentagon hasn't specifically approved cannot be published. And so what I'm saying is that personnel issues, internecine warfare, interpersonal struggles, the American people deserve to know. That is useful information. And I don't think any of this would have happened had Signalgate not happened. I think that was the catalyst, and it was embarrassing for the Pentagon. He didn't want it to happen again. And I want to also point our audience to one of the shining moments in American history, and from my perspective, and that is the Pentagon Papers.
Yes.
What Katharine Graham did at the Washington Post, standing up for the American people like that, exposing Nixon, that was bravery distilled. Honestly, one of the most landmark moments of the American press.
I agree. Yeah.
And if we were to snatch that, it looks like we did. We yanked that opportunity for the press to hold our leaders accountable. That is such a dereliction of duty.
Yeah, come on, jump in on this. So I would love the fact that the corporate media was welcomed into the same room that I was. I mean, obviously they are, but technically they have to sign an agreement that they disagree with and they're not going to be in the same room as me. Unless they get a guest pass. But the reality of it is they allowed the media, under Joe Biden, they allowed us to be shunned from being in the room. There was no access when I reached out for comment from the White House on several occasions.
Wrong, and I'm sorry.
They ignored, well, thank you. I mean, it's just, the part that gets really frustrating with me is their focus right now. I know it is because the New York Times, The Guardian, they've all reached out for comment about me getting credentialed. And I've broken stories that don't side with the conservative side either, and they do come after me for that. But I was the one who broke the Tulsi Gabbard story about Tulsi Gabbard being added to the TSA terror watch list.
Yeah.
All of the
very important stories.
Thank you. Well, you know what's crazy? There were so many mainstream outlets who knew about it, but they didn't run the story because they didn't want to be on the bad side of the. They didn't want to be the bad side of the Biden administration.
Yeah.
So here's the thing:
I think there's a
we should
bigger
all be in the
problem
room.
with that. I think
Yeah.
there's a bigger problem with our corporate media, legacy media, actually providing cover for the powerful more
That's
than
the problem.
anything else. Yeah. So
That's why you need balance. You need
you
everyone
need
in the
balance.
room.
I agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. But you can't let the bad actors paint a picture of the media overall or persuade you to go along with the government in honestly engaging in behavior that I think is meant to silence the media.
Well, here's my thing. So they asked me to come and be a part of their media team. I did 3 different times. I've gone after Headset, but not like aggressively, but being respectfully critical. I went after him for that guitar official who he sat with and met with. I didn't like that about the air bases, and I was public about that. I also went after him for, and again, this was all respectfully, went after him for leaving. There's one official who was a part of Lloyd Austin's cabinet who is still working there, and he was trying to promote him to chief of staff.
Really?
Yes.
Exeth was?
Yes, but here's the thing, the White House shut it down. This was, I forgot what outlet published it, but the White House shut it down. I verified it, because before I run anything from the mainstream too, I always reach out to close sources, and I was told from current employees, these weren't disgruntled employees, that yes, that reporting was accurate. So I vetted it before I actually went out there and backed that reporting.
Yeah.
Then there was the other reporting about the 3 leakers, which he wasn't very happy about either. But I truly believe that those people were not leaking, and I reached out to everyone for comment to get fair and balanced coverage on it. So I was critical
love
about
that report.
Yeah,
I
Breanna,
read
you
that.
have been
Thank you.
doing the Lord's work on that. I've actually been noticing and reporting, and kudos. I'm very proud of the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And I think the solution was to expand the pool rather than to reduce it, which is the path that they took. And I also want to say it's due to intrepid reporters like you that the neoconservative project, their desire to conquer the Middle East and to exert regime change, that was exposed because of our journalists, okay?
Yes.
We didn't just randomly find out about it. It was diligent investigative journalism that got us that intel, which revealed to us that Colin Powell's assertion in front of the United Nations saying that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, that was a lie. And how do we know that? It was because we had a free and working press. And that is why I revere it so dearly. We should be doing everything we can to encourage free dialogue and sunlight rather than going the opposite direction. But I am very heartened by the fact that you are in the room. It gives me hope because I know you're not gonna.
And you're not going to let them silence you.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm a loudmouth these days too.
Yeah, and I like that. That's what you need in the media. You need people who actually want to hold any administration accountable, regardless of what your own political leanings are.
Yeah, and to add to that too, under the Biden administration, I submitted several FOIA requests for information that I thought was relevant to what I believe is a weaponized federal government, and they refused to even respond in many cases. And so I did file several lawsuits, and they're still pending. Although it's a new administration, we're still suing them actively.
Love it.
Yeah, the Biden administration actually has been just terrible with the press. I want to say that they have threatened news organizations for disclosing that Biden was in cognitive decline.
Yeah.
So what they did was absolutely reprehensible.
But why didn't they speak out about that, Lindy? That's my problem
Nobody
I have
did.
with all of them. Remember when he had the card, he had all the names and the photos? So many of them submitted their questions in advance, which I would never do as a journalist. If Pete Hegseth were to ask me for my questions in advance, I would laugh, maybe give him a fake one as a joke, and then hit him with the hardball.
Yeah, it's super
not
unethical
okay.
to do that.
Let
You're
me
not
tell you
supposed to give
exactly.
them
I know
questions.
exactly why. Let me tell you exactly why. Because a lot of them, actually, I would say the vast majority of the people in our press corps, they have liberal leanings.
Yep.
So people like Terry Moran from ABC News, who sent out that long tirade, just the scathing rebuke, I forget, of Stephen Miller. He inadvertently revealed his own personal biases. That is what we do not want. Okay, we don't want your political ideology when you report. We want the facts.
You know what happens though? The colleges are really kind of the cesspool for all of
Yeah,
this.
I was indoctrinated.
I know that's what happens. I mean, as soon as I graduated high school, I was hit with the voter registration form, and I didn't know who to pick, so I just went with Democrats at the time, and I stayed
Right,
a
you
Democrat.
were around the same age. They asked you to vote for Obama, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I didn't switch over, I think, until 2017, 2018. I think I switched over officially, but I didn't have a mind of my own when I was that young. I was kind of just like, whatever happened. But I remember sitting in the college class, which was heavily Democrats, and the college professor yelling at me when I said something as simple as, I think it was just like, we're talking about reality TV. And I said, I think women who watch reality TV, and a lot of it, consume their lives around it, are just unhappy with something within their own life.
That's such a good point.
And they all ambushed me. It was an ambush.
It's so funny you say that. When I was in college, I was radicalized the opposite way. But it's funny you mentioned it's under Obama. I think honestly things were less politicized then between the parties, so maybe the messaging was more clandestine.
Yeah.
When I was in college, the way they did it was through gender ideology. Like that was my era of college, was under Biden. And I had like multiple they, them professors, which by the way, like it was so new to me, I didn't care. I'm like, whatever, I don't care calling you by your pronouns. But then it got to name 72 genders. I called him sir by accident. I got penalized. But like when he said crazy things, he would never get in trouble. He came to class posting bikini pictures on the board. And like by the way, I'm like misgendering him right now. And because they forced it so badly down my throat, and then the COVID vaccine really threw me over the edge. We spoke about this earlier. I was like, you preached to me last week, my body, my choice. You handed out condoms and Plan Bs to the whole class, okay? And now I don't want to get vaccinated, and suddenly I don't have my body, my choice anymore. And nobody really could like answer that question besides like, oh, you're getting suspended from school now. And that pushed me completely. Like I didn't care about politics. I'm a sports reporter like you. And then that just completely radicalized me the opposite way.
That's very interesting. Wow, okay, thank you for that. I think this is a great opportunity for us to move to the second topic, which there's some overlap with what we discussed right now, and that is the shakeup at CBS. Basically, the entire operation has been revolutionized in a matter of days, and I want to talk about what is driving that exactly. Well, new ownership is the answer. David Ellison is now at the helm of CBS News, and he's hired Bari Weiss, who is, she describes herself as a diehard Zionist. She's going hard and firing a lot of people. In fact, there are some reporters alleging that there's racial bias. I don't know if that's true, but one CBS News staffer has described the cuts as a bloodbath. Another person who said that the race and culture unit was gutted. He also pointed out that their streaming services have been gutted as well, which is very interesting because in the age of streaming, don't you think that you would invest more resources into it instead of pulling back? So we'd love to get your ladies' thoughts on what exactly is going on here. And just one last thing, Bari Weiss apparently fired a journalist who exposed atrocities in Gaza. So Anna, you have been very well-versed on this issue. We'd love to hear your take on what exactly is going on in one of the premier flagships of the American media.
By the way, I just want to interject before Anna answers. There's no proof that Bari made that call to fire her.
She's the head of news at CBS.
She didn't make a call
the
to
buck
fire
stops
Isn't
with her.
she? That's like saying, oh, America bombed a country, but we don't know who's
Because a
in
lot of
charge.
the things people are putting on Bari now were decisions that were made before she came in.
Who's in charge right now?
Right now it's Bari Weiss, but a lot of the decision
That's all I
makings
need
that are
to know.
taking
That's all I need
place
to know.
now.
Okay, so
get rid of
Bari
wokies.
Weiss was specifically, first of all, the Free Press, which has a non-existent YouTube page, and has a decent subscriber base. We don't know what percentage of those subscribers are paying subscribers, but nonetheless, David Ellison purchased the Free Press for $150 million. Obviously, that's a ridiculous valuation. And according to the Financial Times, which broke this story when it first was reported, Ellison was interested in Bari Weiss specifically because of her pro-Israel stance. So right off the bat, there is clear reporting indicating that her publication is being purchased and she's being brought on to CBS specifically because of her bias. And the thing is, it's fine to have a bias. It's not okay to insert that bias into what's supposed to be straight news reporting. I do commentary, I do opinion. It's obvious I'm doing opinion, but the facts are the facts. And getting rid of a specific journalist because she is exposing atrocities, whether it be in Gaza or any other country, I don't really care, I think is a black mark on CBS now. And so look, CBS has been corporate media, and I don't think they've done a fantastic job in every case, even prior to bringing Bari Weiss on. But now I don't trust their foreign policy reporting at all. I'll never read their foreign policy reporting as long as she's the head of news there, and trust anything that they're saying, because she has such a significant bias that already has played out in the hiring and firing decisions at CBS.
So I want to kind of piggyback on this because I know you were mentioning the DEI angle to all of this and the firings of those, but I also want to say that Page 6 actually did a story, and they're alleging that her security each day costs about $10,000,
Wow.
which is crazy. If
CBS
that's true.
is paying for that?
They're paying for that.
Wow.
But that's kind of insane given the fact that they are doing these firings.
Yeah.
This is according to Page 6. The sources that they've spoken to say that it costs $10,000. She's got about 8 security guards who follow her around everywhere. And it's because they're saying it's because of her pro-Israel stance on a lot of this and because she's a Zionist. And that's the reason why. That's according to this report again. That's Page 6. But the DEI angle to this, I know there's a lot of people out there claiming that they're firing individuals and they're also getting rid of...
I'm not sure if that's true. I'm just saying that's...
I've seen the videos and they're... So there were so many people when we started this whole DEI movement who were passed up on jobs, specifically white men, and when they were able to bring other people in. And I never thought that was okay because that was obviously discrimination, but nobody ever argued. Instead of us knowing about who you are, what your race is, let's just hand over our resumes without any names on it, have an ID number on it.
I love that idea.
They never
I think
argued
that's
for
so
that.
smart.
Absolutely.
I don't think anyone should be hired based on their ethnicity, their religion, their race. I think we need to have like blind hiring, like the way that you just described. Because look, journalism is really important for a functioning democracy, and you need actual seasoned journalists who know how to do the job, who actually want to hold true or speak truth to power, right? And report the facts as they are, not, make the facts or twist the facts in a direction that's favorable to their own political views.
And that's why I'm so happy that President Trump has revived the idea of a meritocracy, And I think, frankly, a lot of the people who are hurt the most by affirmative action are the black and brown people who got there because of the strength of their own resume. Because now everyone's looking at them as scans saying, oh, do you actually deserve that position? But they know they earned that place. And actually, another thing I want to say is that CBS is a CBS of Walter Cronkite, who is a legend in American journalism. And for Bari Weiss, and I also, as a result of one of my Her Take segments, someone actually called to threaten me.
I mean, someone sicked their dog at me and my dog one morning because they don't like my commentary on Israel. So no one spends $10,000 on my security. I don't spend any money on security. And it's just, I think Bari Weiss is being a little too paranoid here.
Yeah, but they use Bari Weiss's name to threaten me.
Yeah.
As though I should care what somebody at CBS thinks of my commentary about American foreign policy. But what I'm saying is, it really undermines Americans' trust in legacy media.
Yes.
And that is why people like Patrick Bet-David here at Valuetainment and other independent media, they are getting so much attention. Because they know, Patrick doesn't have sponsors.
Well, Patrick has people on his program regularly that I know he disagrees with, vehemently so.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's had Benjamin Netanyahu on and Nick Fuentes on his show. And to me, that is evidence of someone who's willing to sit down and have conversations or interview everyone, regardless of what his own political leanings are. I think that is an important signal to put out into the world. And again, look, I'm going to be fair to Bari Weiss because I used to be subscribed to the Free Press because they have some fantastic journalism. as long as it's not on the topic of Israel, to be honest with you. And it sucks because it leaves a black mark on her reputation. I know she's capable of publishing really good work, but when you let your bias infiltrate the decision-making, it's going to essentially discredit the entire organization that you're working for.
I want to step in here. I think everyone is really being dramatic about this whole thing. I know plenty of people running companies whose journalists don't agree with them, and we see this every single day of our lives that these pieces still get published. Barry Weiss, I don't know if you guys remember, it was like 2 weeks ago, sent a very like Elon Doge type email, like I want to see what everyone's working on, and everyone essentially spit on her face. And nobody got fired for that. She's getting rid of like the woke DEI
Well, they're
department.
unionized, that's why.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. My point is that they can still publish whatever they want.
Can you show me a single anti-Israel piece from the Free Press?
Well, we're talking about CBS now. Okay. It's a different game completely.
Well, she was just there for the past...
I understand, and that was her company. Now she's being tapped in as a CEO to a new
I'm not going to
company.
let you bypass my question because she's been there for about... She created it, I think it was 2021. If you can present to me just one piece that was anti-Israel published by the Free
There
Press.
were none. Okay?
Okay.
I'm talking about now CBS, which is more legacy,
She's
more
been there for like 4
mainstream.
days, so I understand.
She's been there for a little bit more than that, but I think you're deliberately missing my point just to like interject
Do you
here.
think she's going to allow the publishing of critical stories that are critical of
I think
Israel?
she will.
Okay.
Because to me, first of all, she's left-leaning, and I think you saying that now her reputation is stained because she has a bias towards Israel.
Yeah.
Everyone does. You're either pro or you're against. So you could make that same argument for literally every single company. And my point is, I know so many news organizations, Fox News included, CNN included, where sometimes the journalism doesn't match up, where you're like, huh, CNN wrote that, or Fox wrote that, or Times of Israel was the one who started this whole stupid $7,000 influencers thing. So my point is, Barry, being a staunch Zionist, who's still very, very left-leaning to me, isn't going to ruin the organization because she's a Zionist? Like,
Okay,
I'm so confused.
One of her first decisions was, it was kind of hilarious because it had no viewership. One of her first decisions as the head of news, what is it called? The actual title, I'm like forgetting right now, not editor-in-chief. Anyway, whatever. The head of the news division.
News director?
News director, I don't remember exactly, but basically she's the top honcho when it comes to making decisions about their news division. And one of the first things she did is put together a panel with Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice to talk about foreign policy. It got no viewership because no one cares what Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice is a freaking dinosaur from the Bush era. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, why do we need to hear what a bunch of neocons have to say?
Another point that I want to mention is the fact that David and Larry Ellison are not just moving into CBS, they're also making inroads into CNN, HBO, TikTok, and other media outlets. And I think it's a question worth considering. Is it safe to have all these important media behemoths in the hands of just one man?
No,
What do you think?
but it's always been that way, I feel like, okay? So I actually wanted to bring this up because it's it's on topic with why I don't trust any outlet at this point, but I also like to know what their angle is on stories. So I like to know if they have bias before I actually read into their stories. Many people probably aren't familiar with this, but back during the COVID pandemic, I was working at Fox at the time. And when I got there, I was forced out because they wanted me to comply with the New York City vaccine mandate. And I was very tough on that. And I said I was not going to take it at all. And so they threatened to put me on unpaid leave. There were shows that I was producing for where there was a massive chunk of an interview. Peter Navarro was on our show. And they completely removed the part where he's just telling young people, if you're young and healthy, don't take the vaccine because we don't know the long-term effects. And I didn't understand why they were so bent on getting that part out of the interview. And then the Blaze did a FOIA request, and they found out that this is according to them back in 2022, that Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, New York Post, the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, all of the Newsmax, BuzzFeed, all of these are listed in this article. They all took money from HHS to promote the vaccines, but never actually,
They
here's the
took
article.
money from HHS?
HHS, yeah.
That's super unethical.
Well,
like, that's
and no one
crazy.
disclosed that, and that's why when I was there, we were only allowed to talk about it positively. Now they're all being critical of the vaccines, and they're saying the things that they should have said a long time ago that we knew for a fact. But I was sitting in those editorial meetings, and when I pitched something about possibly the damages that could be done by taking this, they didn't have any data on this, and I kept saying that. It never made it to air. So here's my thing. A lot of times during these editorial meetings, during these whatever they do in the print side of things get shut down pretty quickly based on their own bias, and you wouldn't even know this as an audience member.
Who reported that?
This is the Blaze. So if you go on their website, you just simply search exclusive. The federal government paid hundreds of dollars media companies to advertise the COVID vaccines while those same outlets provided positive coverage of the vaccines.
So were
It was
these
done-
ads by Pfizer and Moderna?
I
or-
never saw these ads running on the network itself. I could just tell you that based on my experience, that these were shut down. Anytime we had someone on who might be a little bit combative with the vaccine itself, they just were not allowed on air.
I just remember that era being kind of scary to be someone in the media who wanted to ask questions, because the second you'd ask a question, you'd get smeared as someone who's like a vaccine denialist or whatever. And anyway, and that's not a healthy environment to do journalism in at all. Like, you should be able to ask questions and you shouldn't be shut down by your editor.
Yeah, that's why I
Breanna,
left.
you bring up such an important point. Thank you so much for shedding light on that, because it wasn't just legacy media, though. It was social media writ large.
Yeah.
People were just being deplatformed by Facebook, Twitter at the time. And just for saying, maybe we should look into
the Wuhan lab,
exactly.
for instance. And now it turns out, it's very likely the
was gain
COVID
of
vaccine was a
function.
lab leak.
Exactly. And to even say that was human manufactured, or it was not from a food wet market.
Yeah, they went after everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that
YouTube
is not
too.
okay. So for Democrats to say that we believe in free speech, we want to hold Trump accountable, these are the very same people who destroyed lives over it, for even saying that shutdowns are not okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty insane that this even happened in the first place. And so many people have gotten away with this. I know everyone was like, oh, Pfizer's probably pouring a bunch of money into these networks. I haven't seen, during the time, I didn't see Pfizer pouring in the money. I knew that they were a top advertiser for Fox.
Spoiler, they are, yeah.
Yeah, but at the time when it came to pushing the jabs, this was heavily done by our government. We have all the FOIA information to prove it. But the problem, too, is HHS, when we asked specifically what the exact dollar amount was given to the media outlets, although we know there was something like about $100 million allocated, we don't know how much these outlets actually took in.
$100 million.
Yeah, and that was due to the funding bills for COVID, all of
You
the
would think that
somehow.
there would be more transparency now, right?
I'm still suing over simple things. I mean, I want to know how illegal aliens were boarding flights and what documents they had to present with, because they don't have driver's licenses. They didn't have photo IDs.
Oh, that's a good point.
And they didn't want to tell me. They ignored me. I had to sue. And I actually found out that the Biden administration was allowing TSA agents to use DHS documents for convicted sex offenders, you could just say. So it had them lay out a commitment that they were going to register as a sex offender when they got to wherever they were going to get, that they had to join in some reform programs. I mean, I publish it on my independentnewsroom.com outlet. It is there. This is what they were hiding from us. They were allowing people we didn't know who they were to fly anywhere in our country.
That's
amazing.
insane. I
See,
can't
that-
believe we lived through that.
I had to sue for that, yeah.
It just feels very dystopian.
Yeah. We have one more topic to get to. Super excited about the revelations that Anna's going to share about job losses across the economy, but at Amazon in particular. And maybe we can also talk about UPS. But Anna, please, your floor.
So I wouldn't say I'm excited to share the details here, because I think what's kind of building in the country, and it's going to be a problem worldwide, is how AI is disrupting the labor market. And so Amazon has announced that they are cutting tens of thousands of jobs in an effort to save on labor costs and maximize profits. Now, there were some thoughts that these mass firings had more to do with the fact that they overhired during the COVID pandemic. However, the Wall Street Journal has poured cold water on that, because in 2022 was when they got rid of a ton of workers when they had overhired for COVID. So this next round, or the current round of mass firings over at Amazon, does have to do with AI. They are, in fact, intending to replace these jobs with AI. So around 14,000 workers were fired as part of this first round of cuts, but they're not quite done yet. Soon, the layoffs are expected to affect as many as 30,000 corporate jobs. So I want to be clear, these aren't the factory workers that they're targeting. These are the corporate positions over at Amazon. The planned cuts are expected to amount to roughly 10% of Amazon's corporate workforce. So when we talk about AI impacting jobs in America, they are, at least for now, mostly impacting white-collared workers, okay? So the professional managerial class, if you will. The firings impact human resources, cloud computing, advertising, and other business units, specifically at Amazon, but I'm sure this is going to impact other industries as well, other companies as well. So according to the Wall Street Journal, Amazon's job cuts come as large companies in the U.S. are looking at ways to reduce or slow the growth of their headcount, including by employing artificial intelligence. Rising prices, a tighter labor market, and the ebb and flow of President Trump's trade war have led corporate leaders to look at ways to tighten belts without hurting growth. And it does look like the mass firings, again, have a lot to do. There's a correlation between the mass firings and how much Amazon has invested in AI technology. As the Wall Street Journal reports, Amazon chief executive Andy Jassy has been on a years-long campaign to cut expenses as the company ramped up spending on AI amid increased competition for its cloud computing business. So look, this is capitalism. Companies have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize profits to return on investment for their shareholders. But I feel like we're running into a brick wall because at some point, when the workforce gets dwindled down and unemployment rises and people aren't spending money, these companies are going to be the ones that suffer as well. It's almost like we're destroying ourselves with what's going on. And I'm really curious what you ladies think about it.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
Really quickly, and I'll come back to you, I promise. Right now, I also want to provide additional context. Companies like NVIDIA, or just the Magnificent Seven, which is Amazon, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta, all these Google, these companies, they are betting billions of dollars on GPUs, on AI. It's proliferating everywhere. People are even saying that perhaps we're in the middle of a bubble. And I'm an investor myself, and I'm terrified, which is, yeah.
I just wanted to jump because you're spot on right now. They just actually announced today that OpenAI has signed a $38 billion deal with Amazon Web Services.
Wow.
And it's going to be working alongside NVIDIA as well. And this is their way of pulling away from Microsoft. So I just want to add
Exactly.
that.
And by the way, Emily, I don't know if you guys remembered what happened last week, I think, when all of a sudden everything stopped working. 2 weeks ago. Do you know what happened?
Oh, yeah, the crash out.
Do you remember what happened?
Everything was down.
Do you know what happened? Does anyone know what happened? In Virginia, someone made a typo in an update in everything. I'm giving you a very a layman's version. There was a typo, there was an update, everything fell apart.
Wow.
And that just shows the world how important Amazon Web Services is to the ecosystem. Emily, did you have a point?
Yeah, I was going to tell Anna this might be the only thing we ever agree on, but I really think it's so frightening, and this was something I foresaw AI doing in general, was taking human jobs. But I'm really surprised that it's corporate jobs that they're taking and not more like assembly line type jobs, because if anything, I thought it would be inverted, and I still think that's bad. Because I don't know what you guys use. I use ChatGPT very often.
Yeah.
And they are so inaccurate.
Yes,
There
I
have
agree.
been times where when I'm studying something that Trump did, and they will think that Biden is still the president. And a lot of people don't do their due diligence in fact checking AI because they just blindly do it. And I've seen people get screwed in this. Now imagine you're putting a company's hands in AI. Down the line, I think it would be possible. Today, I'm going to exclude the morals for a minute. I think it's irresponsible and dangerous to do that, and I think you'll see more of those blackout instances happening. But morally speaking, who is this good for? Don't get me wrong. Oh my God, you're a communist. No, I'm a capitalist.
Yeah.
But AI is unprecedented. Where's the line?
Emily,
Yeah, I
let me
agree.
answer your question right away. It's good for the shareholders, people
Well,
like
of
me.
course.
who invest.
Now,
It's-
though.
everyone is,
Right, she's right,
that
they're
is
gonna
why
not
that is
spend.
why I'm actually sympathetic to President Trump's proposal that came out a couple weeks ago. He's saying that companies shouldn't put out quarterly earnings. It should be every 6 months. I'm saying that there's a point to that. I'm not sure if I support that proposal wholeheartedly, but there's something to be said about that, because everything we are now at we are the victim of short-termism.
I agree.
They don't
Yes.
care about the next quarter. They care about this quarter and whether Wall Street earnings will be or disappoint.
And guys, I'm genuinely worried, and I'm thinking long term. I always think long term, right? I am genuinely worried about the absolute chaos and anarchy and insanity that will ensue when we have mass unemployment. People feel like they've got nothing to lose. They have no future to look forward to. If we had a government that I felt was competent and was planning, was taking a look at our technology, how it's developing, and planning ahead, I would feel better about the situation. We don't have that government.
I have a solution. Do you guys want to hear it? It's a proposal, and I want to hear if you. So I'm a deep capitalist. My family's from a communist regime, so I'm very anti-communist everything. But how do we solve the problem that Anna just laid out very well? And one idea that I had, and I'm not sure how palatable it would be to the American public, and I know my prelude is already going on for a long time. What about a universal basic income?
So I thought about that too. But the universal basic income, don't you end up with the same thing that people complain about with communism?
But what I'm saying is there's going to be
It's not right.
There's so much economic dislocation. What I'm saying is you give people this amount regardless of their wealth. regardless if they're billionaires or
that's
they're
kind of tough. I
destined
think it
to
makes them
I don't like
lazy.
that though.
Yeah.
Like
It's a
the
slippery
one thing-
slope.
What are we gonna do?
The one thing about capitalism that I think, if you're not dealing with crony capitalism, which I think we do have in the United States, unfortunately, but the whole point of capitalism was innovation, competition. If you want to work hard and you want to achieve, you can earn more.
Right.
And that gets taken away entirely under a system in which everyone's unemployed and we just rely on the same amount of money through universal basic
Yeah, like if I
income.
was getting income, why would I do anything? Like,
No,
I
well-
like working, but what if you're a lazy bum?
I was thinking of like $10,000, just like something that,
A month?
no, like a year.
That's
So
a
not-
girl, that's crazy. What are you gonna do with $10,000?
I don't know, man.
That's like
I'm just
17
saying that
eggs
I
at
think
this point.
No, what I'm saying is I don't think we're ready for the cataclysm that will ensue. And once the AI revolution,
I
has
agree
taken
with that.
hold, it's gonna be.
I think it's gonna be apocalyptic.
Exactly. So and like all of us here at the table are gonna be fine. I feel like, but there's gonna be deep suffering, not just in America but around the world. This
Wait,
is
by the way,
international.
and then I'll get to you. Like, as a sports reporter, I'm always like selfishly like, oh, AI will never take my job. Let me tell you something. In my last fight in Saudi Arabia, they didn't replace yet, but I think that's what they were leaning towards. They took a referee and replaced him with AI.
Yeah,
wow.
And
They're
I
gonna do that
was
in baseball
like,
soon too.
that's crazy. So I was interviewing AI. We had a conversation. Do you know how surreal that felt? And then I was like, wait, I'm next. So like, they don't need me. You could just recreate me in a robot and not pay me. And then it's
So
great.
I have some good news. I don't know. The good news is all the money that companies like NVIDIA, like Meta actually is going big on AI. They actually had to take a write down. Meta stock has been plummeting in recent days because they've been spending so much money on AI. The good news is it's still a bet. It may not have paid off yet. There's still a chance that all the promises, all the benefits that have been heralded so far, they may not pan out. We are still waiting to see.
I don't think we survive with AI and with H-1B visas being popped out everywhere. You know, I live in Texas, in the area I live in. It's heavy with the H-1B visas. It's really not an enjoyable place to live anymore because of how bad it's gotten. I used to visit there all the time for the last 10 years. I've been going out there, and it's just becoming so unbearable because a lot of these people, they don't have our same educational background. I know people don't like to hear that, but
No,
the
it's
reality is
important.
they're not able to drive. They're
You
not
know
able to do
what's
the same things as the rest of us.
Thank you for bringing this up because a point that supporters of H-1B visas make is, no, but these are highly skilled workers, right? And it's like, why aren't we producing highly skilled workers here?
That's the problem with our education. But nobody wants to
Our
challenge
education system
Americans.
sucks.
We've all just kind of gotten
We
away
need
with
to
being very
invest in
lazy.
it.
Yeah.
I want to say something maybe that'll piss people off. I love what President Trump is doing on higher education. He said you should cap the number of international students
I
that
agree.
our
I
highest,
actually
our
agree
most
with that.
elite
Yeah, I agree,
institutions should accept. We should be investing. The Harvards of the world, the Princetons, they should be investing in our children.
Yeah, but I just don't like the fact that he's bringing more Chinese students. That to me doesn't sit well. I think recently he announced that he's doubling the number of
So
Chinese
obviously,
I saw that. I was very
okay, guys.
confused.
I obviously, I can't hide the fact that I am of Chinese descent, and I'm appalled by the CCP. But I agree with you on that. And
Why
let me
is
tell
that
you.
happening?
Let me
Why
tell
did
you
you make that
exactly
decision?
why.
It doesn't make any sense.
Let me tell you
Yeah.
why I agree, though.
I'll leave it to you to find out, though.
So he's saying that we should cap the number of Chinese students that come into the country. I agree with that because a lot of them go back to China.
They have to.
If we're going to funnel our resources, if we're going to invest in these young minds
That makes
during their
no
most
sense.
formative periods of their lives, they should stay in the United States and prime our economic engine. They
Agreed.
should make our country stronger because at these elite institutions, you know how much the price tag of the education is? It's $1 million. I know we pay like $250,000, the parents do, but it actually costs university $1 million. If we're going to funnel that much money into a student, they sure as hell stay here and make our country stronger. But a lot of the times, it's not just China, by the way, around
Yeah,
the
it's
world.
every country.
Exactly. So if you
all the
come to-
princes and kings, all their
Yes.
kids go to Harvard.
But
Yeah.
we don't need them here, though. That's why I've never understood why we sit here and advocate for it.
I'm
They
sure
should-
there's
why
something
they get
we're
affected.
missing.
Well, they get accepted into these universities. Sure, they're connected and
Right.
powerful. That's part of it. But foreign students get charged an entirely
Yes.
different tuition, and the university makes a lot more money off
Exactly.
of them.
Exactly.
That
And
makes
so
more
they're
sense.
totally okay with foreign students taking spots from American students because they know they can charge them an arm and a leg for the same education.
Right, exactly. And then, are you guys aware that their acceptance rate now is 4% already? It's 4%. That is abysmal. So we
I
should
just
be
agree with the fact that like we're providing you with the education, you're taking our innovation, and then you're bringing it to another country that's literally competing, arguably threatening us all the time. It's counter.
You and I are aligned on that.
Yeah, so that's why I don't understand why we even allow it in the first place. You know,
But
China
some
has
of
a
them
history
do
of
stay
doing
here.
that.
Someone's gonna like spin this and call us racist now,
My
I
dad
swear.
went to Harvard Medical School. We've stayed. I mean, I've been here for 30 years.
Yeah.
So like, I love America. I would die for this country.
Yeah.
If there are immigrants who are willing, who have that same mentality, who are willing to assimilate, who can learn
want to
English,
stay here and contribute,
exactly.
then I'm totally fine with it.
And
But-
that's the key thing too. You said assimilate and who want to contribute. You know, we were just watching the interviews of these truck drivers who got their CDLs and they're from India, but they were coming here to work here. And one of them in a local news report said, "Oh, I'm sending the money back to my family in India." Well, why are we doing this to ourselves? Because we should be paying these people a livable wage,
Exactly.
livable wage here, which I think is fair to ask of these truck companies, and stop. But then when you look through the history, and I've done the research, especially in California, the driving schools are run by Indian-owned families, and they're getting these people in. They're paying off the DMVs. There's been at least half a dozen in the last couple of years where they've gotten caught in this scheme, where they're paying off the DMVs to give them the licenses, even though they're not proficient. And yeah, you just look it up. The DOJ has prosecuted a lot of these cases. They're just giving them bribes, and then they're going towards companies that are owned by Indian companies. And if they're not owned by Indian companies or working for an American company, they're still sending the money back to India. We're shooting ourselves in the foot
I
here.
agree with that. And Breanna, you bring up a fascinating point because a lot of companies have actually done well under the Trump era. You know, one company that has not been doing well? Western Union. Because illegal aliens and also just legalized immigrants, over the decades, they've been pouring money back to their home countries. And now they don't want to because they're scared that leaving a money trail will expose them to the legal authorities.
Oh, wow.
So they've gone undercover.
That's really
I watch the markets
interesting.
really closely, so like Western Union is definitely on my
That's
radar.
so
But
interesting.
so Trump has he has single-handedly changed the pattern of international money flow through his immigration policy, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, and it's interesting too to talk to people. Let's just go with like how he's been able to handle the whole crisis at the border. I'm talking to people who are on the ground in places like Portland, and they're telling me that like
You're all over the place.
Yeah, the drug prices have absolutely skyrocketed because there's a limited supply coming now into our country. So his policies are working out well.
Illegal drugs.
Yeah, illegal drugs.
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay, I was
Sorry,
gonna
to
mean
say,
legal.
but I will say this: I'm a little bit worried about some of the trade war stuff because there's already been shortages and like back orders of like pharmaceutical medications that people need.
Yeah.
So I really hope he considers. I
Can we
think
talk
that
about
issue.
that more? This was all new to me. Like all these trade wars things. I had never even heard of tariffs like prior to history in elementary school. Why are we so dependent on another country for something that is so essential?
Cheap
Wait,
labor.
What if
Yeah.
one day they wake up and they can't stand us anymore and they want nothing to do with us? We're not going to get our medication that we need. I understand like trade and cheap labor, but we can't be solely dependent.
I mean,
It's
look, I
insane.
agree with you on that. So I'll give you another example. One of the reasons why the United States is almost ready and willing to go to war for Taiwan, to protect Taiwan from China,
Semiconductors.
is because of semiconductor chips.
Yeah.
Now, luckily, the United States is now manufacturing and producing some of the most sophisticated and like top of the line semiconductor chips. That is a good thing. I would like to see that happen with other essential items, including pharmaceutical drugs. And remember, when it comes to pharmaceutical drugs, they take advantage of the cheap labor, but it's not like they give us a discount on the pharma drugs at all.
Give it to AI.
Or the
and-
food.
I'm going to give President Trump even more credit. This is going to be a love fest. A couple of weeks ago, he said that Americans are now going to enjoy most favored nation status when it comes to pharmaceuticals, which means that we are no longer going to have to pay more than other countries for the same pharmaceutical drugs. That is a fantastic policy.
Wait, do you know that pills that I live on? So I got my thyroid taken out when I was like 14, and I need these pills to live.
And you pay more than other countries too?
For it's over the counter. So when I go to Saudi, I stock up on these.
Oh, because
it's called
it's cheaper there.
levothyroxine. First of all, it's like $3.
Yeah.
And you don't need a prescription.
Yeah.
So I walk in, I'm like $150, they give it to me. In America, I've been calling my doctor for 3 months. She doesn't know I have pills from Saudi. I would have been dead already.
Yeah.
If I had
It's
to
still
rely
out
on
of
her.
stock.
Yeah,
It's not even out of stock. It's by the time the doctor answers and they say that the prescriptions are, and they go to the pharmacy. Oh, we don't have it. Wait 3 hours. Oh, we don't have your prescription. It's just a nightmare, and everyone deals with it. But it's sad that I could just go to another country come back, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's
and I
obscene.
paid nothing.
You should not have to do that.
Well, one of the biggest problems we're going to have, too, is the fact that both China and India make the bulk of our pharmaceutical medications, or the elements we need for it. Last number I looked up was 70%. I just looked it up real quick, though. It says 57.6% is made in those two countries alone. If China ever wants to cut us off, there's going to be millions of Americans who are
Well,
gonna
let's just pray that the recent summit between Trump and Xi at the ASEAN summit last. Well, he said, even I think it was Hegseth who even tweeted, "God bless China." So let's just hope that the two
Oh,
countries-
wow.
I know.
I don't go too far, but like I do think
I know. Wait, did you hear Trump? He's like on a scale of 1 to 10. The meeting was a 12.
I did see that.
Yeah.
We'll see if they meet their end of the bargain. They do that quite
Yeah,
often.
I really
to us.
hope. Anna, I don't know if you intentionally did so, but you brought up a fascinating point that I want to highlight.
Okay.
Our critical resources like semiconductors, like pharmaceuticals, cannot be in the hands of potential adversaries. There's something else that we haven't even discussed today. And it's going to be increasingly, I'm tying all the topics together. It's going to be increasingly important as the AI revolution ensues. And that is rare earth minerals.
Yes. Yeah. And China,
Which, by the way, is a
owns-
misnomer. It's not very rare. Rare earth minerals are actually one of the most pervasive and ubiquitous resources on Earth. What is rare is actually the processing capacity.
Yes.
It's not the rare earths themselves. We actually, in the United States, we have plenty of rare earths. So we should strengthen our own capacity to industrialize and to process these resources, because China is one of the biggest producers.
Yes, that's right. And that's the
environmentalists,
reason why, you know, Trump met with Xi. That was one of the main topics of discussion. And honestly, my read of what was agreed upon, I think that there's a pretty significant loophole in which China can engage in some funny business in regard to giving the U.S. access to rare earths. And look, China's going to look out for China. And I understand that. And you have to respect that, because we want our government to look out for us, right? And so they're saying we are not going to export rare earths for the military or defense capacity or capabilities of other countries. I would want the same thing if we were producing the rare earths. Now, the question is, what do we do to get around that? Because the rare earths are necessary for so many of the products and items that we make here or need here in the United States. So I guess we're going to wait and see how that all plays out. But I do believe in some level of protectionism. That's one of the things that got Trump elected. Hopefully, you know, he actually abides by what he was preaching when he was running, because one of the other things that I've noticed about Trump that bothers me, to be honest, is when it comes to these trade deals, let's talk about Japan. Japan got a lot of favors met after they gave Trump like a fancy set of golf clubs. And it's like, dude, please don't sell out the country for like fancy golf clubs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To it.
Rare earth minerals, I think they got from Japan, too.
Anna,
as well.
that's a really good point. And there has been some concern that Trump is going to ask our companies, like NVIDIA, which is single-handedly driving America's economic engine right now, they're asking NVIDIA to disclose perhaps some Intel secrets, like the trade secrets, industry secrets, know-how, and share it with the Chinese. I very much hope he doesn't do that. That is American enterprise. It's the heart of American innovation. It should stay here. I know Trump wants to deal with China, but not that bad.
I agree.
All right, let's reel that back in. We should keep that in-house and not even share. I wouldn't share with anyone. I'm actually more jingoistic than most Americans, I think. I want an American empire. I want to extend our ascendancy, and a part of that is industrial know-how.
I agree.
Would you make NVIDIA sign an NDA? I'm joking. I'm trying to type back to the.
I actually, let me say, as an investor myself, Jensen Huang is a Taiwanese American. I'm so proud of him as a fellow Asian. And I have this motto, in Jensen, we trust. Like, I trust this guy with all of my money. He will do right by the United States. He's proven his loyalty. And I just hope that we keep everything that we work so hard for.
Can you rub your optimism off on me? I just don't trust anybody, anyone on any planet Earth, and I don't trust anyone, and you trust this man, like.
I trust but verify. I mean, I'm literally putting my money where my mouth
By the way,
is.
I sold NVIDIA, and I'm so upset because I made a lot. I'm like, I'm not gonna get greedy.
I got in when it was $80, so I'm happy to.
I bought it when Paul Pelosi bought it.
Me too. I got it at 84. I tracked Nancy Pelosi's investments, and I did
tracked it for
everything,
100
but I
share.
sold.
You can't go wrong with tracking Nancy Pelosi's
I know.
investments. It beats the S&P 500 every time.
I'm going to wrap up with some free financial advice for our audience. If you want to do really well, You just do the opposite of what Jim Cramer tells you to do.
Yes. Snaps to
So
that.
with that, it was so good to have you, Emily and Breanna, with us
you.
today. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank
It
you.
really means a lot to us. And Anna, where can we find you?
You can find me on Minect. You can also find me at Anna Kasparian Official on Instagram and Anna Kasparian on Twitter, or X.
I like it. Breanna Morello, just Breanna. And then I'm also independentnewsroom.com is my free newsletter, and InfoWars, I host their morning show, the American Journal 9 to 12.
Emily.Austin on Instagram, Emily R. Austin on X, unless Emily Austin wants to give me my handle back. That would be great.
Lindy Li on Minect and everywhere else. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like, subscribe, share. We love you so much. Come back next time.